Welcome everyone to the Fairy Frequency channel. Today I'm going to read to you from Shambhala The Sacred Path of the Warrior by Chogyam Trungpa. Today we are in chapter 18, and if you've missed any of the previous chapters, you can find them in our original playlist titled Shambhala The Sacred Path of the Warrior. So without further ado, chapter 18, How to Rule. The notion of ruling your world is that you can live in a dignified and disciplined way without frivolity, and at the same time enjoy your life. You can combine survival and celebration. The warrior's journey of discovering the natural hierarchy of reality and his place in the world is both exalted and very simple. It is simple because it is so immediate and touching. It is touching your origin, your place in this world, the place you came from, and the place that you belong. It is as if you were taking a long walk through the woods at twilight. You hear the sounds of the birds. You catch a glimpse of the fading light in the sky. You see a crescent moon and clusters of stars. You appreciate the freshness of the greenery and the beauty of wildflowers. In the distance, dogs are barking, children are crying, and occasionally you hear the sound of a car or truck making its journey on the highway. As the wind begins to blow on the highway, as the wind begins to blow on your cheeks, you smell the freshness of the woodlands, and perhaps you startle an occasional rabbit or bird as you pass them by. As twilight goes on, memories of your husband, your wife, your children, your grandparents, your world come back to you. You remember your first schoolroom, where you learned to spell and read and write. You remember tracing the letters I and O, M and A. You are walking in the forest of the Dralas, but still there is the feeling that the woodland is surrounded by other living human beings. Yet when you listen, you hear only the sound of your own footsteps. Right, left, a crackle when you step on a dry twig. When you walk into this world of reality, the greater or cosmic world, you will find the way to rule your world. But at the same time, you will also find a deep sense of aloneness. It is possible that this world could become a place or a kingdom to you, but as its king or queen, you will be a monarch with a broken heart. It is not a bad thing to be by any means. In fact, it is the way to be a decent human being, and beyond that, a glorious human being who can help others. This kind of aloneness is painful, but at the same time, it is beautiful and real. Out of such painful sadness, a longing and a willingness to work with others will come naturally. You realize that you are unique. You see that there is something good about being you as yourself. Because you care for yourself, you begin to care for others who have nurtured your existence or who have made their own journey of warriorship, paving the way for you to travel this path. Therefore, you feel dedication and devotion to lineage of warriors, brave people, whoever they have been, who have made this same journey. And at the same time, you begin to care for all those who have yet to take this path, because you have seen that it is possible for you. You realize that you can help others to do the same. You begin to see that there are seasons in your life in the same way as there are seasons in nature. There are times to cultivate and create. When you nurture your world and give birth to new ideas and ventures, there are times of flourishing and abundance, when life feels in full bloom, energized and expanding, and there are times of fruition, when things come to an end. They have reached their climax and must be harvested before they begin to fade. And finally, of course, there are times that are cold and cutting and empty, times when the spring of new beginnings seem like a distant dream. Those rhythms in life are natural events. They weave into one another as day follows night, bringing not messages of hope and fear, but messages of how things are. If you realize that each phase of your life is a natural occurrence, then you need not be swayed, pushed up and down by the changes in circumstances and mood that life brings. You find that you have an opportunity to be fully in the world at all times and to show yourself as a brave and proud individual in any circumstance. Normally, there appears to be a conflict between survival and celebration. Survival, taking care of your basic needs, is based on pragmatism, exertion, and often drudgery. Celebration, on the other hand, is often connected with extravagance and doing something beyond your means. The notion of ruling your world is that you can live in a dignified and disciplined way, without frivolity, and at the same time enjoy your life. You can combine survival and celebration. The kingdom that you are ruling in your own life, it is a householder's kingdom. Whether or not you have a husband or wife and children, still there is a structure and pattern to your daily life. Many people feel that the regularity of life is a constant imposition. They would like to have a different life or a different menu every second at every meal. It is necessary to settle down somewhere and work at having a regular, disciplined life. The more discipline that occurs, however, the more joyous life can be. So the pattern of your life can be a joyous one, a celebration rather than an obligation alone. That is what it means to rule the kingdom of your life. The notion of the kingdom here is that your life is potentially wealthy and good. There is a great deal of misunderstanding about wealth. Generally, being wealthy means that you have lots of money. But the real meaning of wealth is knowing how to create a gold-like situation in your life. That is to say, you may have only $20 in your bank account, but you can still manifest richness in your world. Interestingly, if you are lost in the desert without food and water, even if you have lots of gold in your pack, you can't eat it and you can't drink it, so you are still starved and parched. That is analogous to what happens to many people who have money. They have no idea how to eat it and how to drink it. Once I heard a story about an Indian chef who struck oil on his property and became rich. He decided to buy 20 basins and bath taps at once as a sign of his wealth. People can spend thousands of dollars and still be dissatisfied and in tremendous pain. Even with all that supposed wealth, they may still be unable to enjoy a simple meal. True wealth does not come about automatically. It has to be cultivated. You have to earn it. Otherwise, even if you have lots of money, you will be starved. So if you want to rule your world, please don't think that that means you have to spend a great deal of money. Rather, true wealth comes from using manpower, individual power. If your suit has lots of lint, don't send it to the cleaners right away. Clean it yourself. That is much less expensive and also more dignified. You put your own energy and effort into caring for your world. The key to wealth, or the golden key, is appreciating that you can be poor, or should I say, unmoneyed, and still feel good. Because you have a sense of wealthiness in any case already. That is a wonderful key to richness and the first step in ruling. Appreciating that wealth and richness come from being a basically decent human being. You do not have to be jealous of those who have more in an economic sense than you do. You can be rich even if you are poor. That twist is a very interesting one and very powerful in terms of how to deal with world problems. Too often, the politics of this world are based on poverty. If people are poor, they want to take money or resources away from those who have more. And if people are wealthy, in the sense of having money, then they want to hold on to what they have, because they think that giving up some of their money will make them impoverished. With that mentality on both sides, it is difficult to imagine any fundamental change taking place. Or if it does take place, it is based on tremendous hatred and violence, because both sides are hanging on so tightly to what they think is important. Of course, If you are starving, then what you want is food. In fact, food is what you need. But the genuine desires of those who are in need can be ruthlessly manipulated. War based on grasping has happened over and over again in this world. People with money have been willing to sacrifice thousands of human lives to hold on to their wealth, and on the other side, people in need have been willing to massacre their fellows for a grain of rice, a hope for a penny in their pocket. Mahatma Gandhi asked the Indian people to embrace nonviolence and to renounce clinging to foreign ways, which they associated with wealth and prosperity. Since most Indians wear cloth that was British made, he asked them to give up wearing British cloth and weave their own. This proclamation of self sufficiency was one way, and a powerful one, of promoting dignity based not on material possessions, but on one's inherent state of being. But at the same time, with every respect for Gandhi's vision of non aggression, which he called satyagraha, or seizing the truth, we should not confuse his message with extreme asceticism. In order to find one's inherent wealth, it is not necessary to renounce all material possessions and worldly pursuits. If a society is to have a sense of command and being ruled, then someone has to wear the three-piece suit at the negotiating tables. Someone has to wear a uniform to keep the peace. The basic message of the Shambhala teachings is that the best of human life can be realized under ordinary circumstances. That is the basic wisdom of Shambhala, that in this world as it is, we can find a good and meaningful human life that will also serve others. That is our true richness. At a time when the world faces the threat of nuclear destruction and the reality of mass starvation and poverty, ruling our lives means committing ourselves to live in this world as ordinary but fully human beings. The image of the warrior in the world is indeed precisely this. In a practical sense, how can we bring this sense of richness and ruling into our ordinary lives? When the warrior has achieved a certain mentality, having understood the basic principles of dignity and gentleness thoroughly, as well as having an appreciation for the Drala principle and the principles of of La, Nyen, and Lu, then he or she could reflect on the general sense of wealth or richness in his or her own life. The basic practice of richness is learning to project the goodness that exists in your being, so that a sense of goodness shines out. The goodness can be reflected in the way your hair is combed, the way your suit fits, the way your living room looks, in whatever there is in your immediate world. Then it is possible to go further and experience greater richness by developing what are called the seven riches of the universal monarch. These are very ancient categories, first used in India to describe the qualities of a ruler. In this case, we are talking about developing these qualities individually, personally. The first richness of the ruler is to have a queen. The queen, or we could say wife or husband, if you like, represents the principle of decency in your household. When you live with someone with whom you can share your life, both your wisdom and your negatives, it encourages you to open up your personality. You don't bottle things up. However, a Shambhala person does not have to be married. There is always room for bachelors. Bachelors are friends to themselves, as well as having a circle of friends. The basic principle is to develop decency and reasonability in your relationships. The sound richness of the universal monarch is the minister. The principle of the minister is having a counselor. You have your spouse, who promotes your decency, and then you have friends who provide counsel and advice. It is said that the ministers should be inscrutable. The sense of inscrutability here is not that your friends are devious or difficult to figure out, but that they do not have a project or goal in mind that clouds their friendship with you. Their advice or help is open-ended. The third richness is the general, who represents fearlessness and protection. The general is also a friend who is fearless because he or she has no resistance to protecting you and helping you out, doing whatever is needed in a situation, The general is a friend who will actually care for you, as opposed to one who provides counsel. The fourth richness is the steed or horse. The steed represents industriousness, working hard and exerting yourself in situations. You don't get trapped in laziness, but you constantly go forward and work with situations in your life. The fifth richness is the elephant, which represents steadiness. You are not swayed by the winds of deception or confusion. You are steady like an elephant. At the same time, an elephant is not rooted like a tree trunk. It walks and moves, so you can walk and move forward with steadiness as though riding an elephant. The sixth richness of the ruler is the wish-granting jewel, which is connected with generosity. You don't just hold on to the richness that you achieve by applying the previous principles, but you let go and give by being hospitable, open, and humorous. Number 7 is the wheel. Traditionally, the ruler of the entire universe holds a gold wheel, while the monarch who rules this earth alone receives an iron wheel. The ruler of Shambhala are said to have held the iron wheel because they ruled on this earth. On a personal level, the wheel represents command over your world. You take your seat properly and fully in your life so that all of the previous principles can work together to promote richness and dignity in your life. By applying these 7 principles of richness, you can actually handle your family life properly. You have a wife or husband, which promotes decency. You have close friends who are your advisors, and you have your guardians or companions who are fearless and in loving you. Then you have exertion in your journey, in your work, which is represented by the horse. You ride on your energy all the time. You never give up on any of the problems in your life, but at the same time you have to be earthy, steady like an elephant. Then, having all those, you don't just feel self-satisfied, but you become generous to others, like the wish-granting gem. Because of that, you rule your household completely. You hold the wheel of command. That is the vision of how to run your household in an enlightened fashion. Having done that, you feel that your life is established properly and fully. You feel that a golden rain is continuously descending. It feels solid, simple, and straightforward. Then you also have a feeling of gentleness and openness, as though an exquisite flower has bloomed auspiciously in your life. In whatever action you perform, whether accepting or rejecting, you begin to open yourself to a treasury of Shambhala wisdom. The point is that when there is harmony, then there is also fundamental wealth. Although at that particular point you might be penniless, there is no problem. You are suddenly eternally rich. If you want to solve the world's problems, you have to put your own household, your own individual life in order first. That is somewhat of a paradox. People have a genuine desire to go beyond their individual cramped lives to benefit the world. But if you do not start at home, then you have no hope of helping the world. So the first step in learning how to rule is learning to rule your household, your immediate world. There is no doubt that if you do so, then the next step will come naturally. If you fail to do so, then your contribution to this world will be further chaos. And that is the end of chapter 18, How to Rule. Thank you so much for joining us. If you've missed any of the previous chapters of this wonderful little book, you can find them in our original playlist titled Shambhala, The Sacred Path of the Warrior. Thanks again, everyone. Have a beautiful day.